Welcome, friends. James with Team Finish Strong. And I am here reviewing a live stream event that I had a few months ago in the world of Zwift. And this was in pursuit of the Masochist badge, arguably one of the hardest badges to attain in Zwift. Now, Zwift is a virtual world where you can get some miles and climbing in on a trainer, just like you would in real life. And it feels just about like you would in real life. And so when you are trying to get the Masochist badge, you are trying to climb the virtual version of Alpe d'Huez called Alpe de Zwift 25 times. 25 times. That is actually more than Everesting. So this is not something you're going to do in an afternoon. And that said, if you want to do this as quickly as possible, you really need to pick the shortest route to Alpe de Zwift, and that is Road to the Sky. It starts you off in the jungle circuit at the very top of the climb, leading into the jungle. And you'll have about a 5-minute ride to the base of the Alpe, but that serves as a great warm-up, and so it's really not a big deal anyway. But that's where you start, and what I suggest is doing a quick bike change when you get there. Let's jump ahead. Okay, we're now approaching the base of the Alpe. And this is where you need to just go ahead and stop, take a moment to rest perhaps, and do a bike change. Now, the best bike at the time of this recording that I'm aware of is the Specialized Tarmac Pro. It is the lightest bike in Zwift, and you need to combine that with the lightest set of wheels. Now, I don't have a great recommendation for you if you don't have the wheel set that I have. I would suggest you go on Zwift Insider and check that out. But the best wheel set that I'm aware of is the wheel set that you actually get after climbing Alpe de Zwift. It's a wheel set that you get after spinning a spinner. Now, you may not get these wheels on the very first attempt, but when you get them, they are the best wheels for tackling future attempts on Alpe de Zwift. And that is the Milstein lightweight wheels. You combine that with the Tarmac Pro and you have one of the best, if not the best setup for climbing Alpe de Zwift. So I do suggest taking the time to change these out before you start your climb. And jumping right into the climb, you can see here Alpe de Zwift has a traditional starting line for the segment, and it goes right into the climb. Now, for a climb like Alpe de Zwift, you're looking at somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half plus for the total climb. Now, if you're superhuman, you can do it in under an hour, and I would encourage you, if you can do it, God bless you, go right for it. But for the rest of us, we have to figure out how to do this hour to hour and a half effort without going crazy. And for me, it's breaking it up into these smaller segments. Now, Alpe de Zwift is perfect for this because it has 21 numbered turns. And so you can break the total climb up into each turn's effort. And for me, on this particular occasion, I wanted to turn this into an interval training session, which makes it great because, let me tell you, I have done Zwift as an all-out effort before to try to get a best time. And that is suffering on a level I have never experienced before or since on the bike. And I care not to repeat that too often. So tonight, I'm breaking it up into hard efforts and light efforts. And so with that said, if that's your mindset too, I might want to recommend this particular idea for you. And that is to start off with your first segment being a light effort. So this introductory up to hairpin 21, do that in a light manner, and then do your hard efforts every other segment after that. What that will do for you is that will allow you to have your hard efforts on most of the shorter segments and your rest breaks on the longer segments. I think it's a good balance between your hard efforts and your recovery, because when you're talking about long climbs like this, at least for me, I need more recovery in order to compensate for the hard efforts. And that's what I do here. So I'm going to jump ahead further and I'll show you some other tips as well. We've jumped 9 minutes into the climb now, and I'm demonstrating the absolute easiest way to shave time off your Alp ascent. And what is that? You can see it right here. Just simply taking the inside line on every turn going up the Alp. You see, the Alp has lots of turns, 21 hairpin turns, and all of these curves. If you take the inside line every time, you're shaving real time off your ascent. We're not talking microseconds here. We're talking real time. So it's worth the effort. Now, how do you accomplish this? Well, you do need some hardware. And what I am using are Zwift Play controllers. Now, I believe that they are no longer being offered on the Zwift store, but there are comparable products out there that you can use instead of that. Whether you have the Zwift bike or some other device, use those to your advantage when you're climbing the Alp. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Alpe du Zwift, it is a representation of a real-life mountain, a very iconic mountain in the world of sports called Alpe d'Huez. It's been featured in the Tour de France countless times. And so Alpe du Zwift is a fairly good representation of Alpe d'Huez in several respects. Turn for turn, grade for grade, effort for effort. I think it's a pretty good match. But one thing you need to keep in mind is that this is a virtual climb, not a real climb. So there are things that you're going to have on the real climb you will never have in Alpe du Zwift. Traffic, heat, humidity, bugs. Not too many, but some. And most of all, real altitude. So just keep in mind, if you're training for the real thing by using Alpe du Zwift, it's not bad, but it's not perfect. I think one of the most obvious things too that's different between Alpe du Zwift and Alpe d'Huez is the scenery. You're not going to be seeing any of this scenery on Alpe d'Huez. Although there are some vague similarities that I see with the real-life version, but truly they have stylized this to make this a lot more like a fantasy than reality. That said, I think climbing Alpe du Zwift is pretty fun. There's lots of things you can look for on Alpe du Zwift that you won't see in the real life, like the Yeti, for example. That is one thing that's not in the real life version, thankfully. But there is Dutch Corner. And do you know what corner Dutch Corner is? Well, let's see. All right, we are now coming to the next corner here. And take a look, folks. Well, actually, we got some weird guy here doing a coffee stop trying to go downhill. Not sure what's going on there. A little too much coffee, I think. But no, Dutch Corner, turn 7, just like in the real world. But looks nothing like it in Zwift. Like I told you, they kind of play things up here. But that's Dutch Corner in the world of Zwift. Well, folks, here we are, almost an hour and 40 minutes into our effort. And I'm just finishing up a segment here. And let me tell you, it is hard. This is an endurance effort, folks. This is not a sprint. It is more like a marathon. And as you're rounding one of the last curves, you're going to have a signal that tells you it's time to gear up and get ready to go. And here it is at turn 2. When you see these satellite dishes, which are not on the real Alpe d'Huez, by the way, it's time for you to get ready for your big push to the finish line because you are one segment away from finishing. And right here, I am taking my last rest break in preparation for the final effort. Let's jump ahead. All right, here we are, folks. We're on the very last segment in Zwift, and it's time to go. It's time to kick it up another gear because there's your finish line. There's the top. Let me tell you, it serves as a great motivation to hustle up that last bit of climb. And you see, I'm not the only one that's hustling too. You're going to find that most people are going to kick it into a higher gear when they get here. So you're really motivated to keep up with everyone else, or you're going to be left in the dust. That's just the way it is in the world of Alpe du Zwift. But let's check out and see what it's like to cross the finish line after 25 times up the Alp. and I should mention one last piece of advice before you make this attempt. You see, the last segment is pretty long, so you got to be careful not to expend all your effort before the hardest and the final part of this segment, which is just near the summit. So save a bit for the end, folks, because you're going to need it. And you can see here, I am making my hardest push here on the steepest part of the climb. And what you think is the top is actually the top. But friends, it is not the finish line. So just keep in mind, when you get to the crest, you got to keep pushing to the end, especially if you're trying to get that sub 1 hour time. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right, let's check out this finish. Well, as you can see, I've left nothing in the tank, and I am about to cross the finish line of Alpe du Zwift, perhaps for the very last time. I don't know. We'll see. And just like I promised, there's your spinner, friends. And if this is your first time, hopefully you'll get the wheel set just like that. But for me, I get 1000 XP because I already got it. And there you go, friends. Achievement unlocked. Masochist badge. You've climbed it 25 times. Big breath out, friends. It's a tough one. It really is. But you know, it is worth it because you get fitness. And you get a little badge, a little electronic badge for your trophy case. Well, friends, that's it from Alpe du Zwift. I hope you the best in your chasing of the Masochist badge. And I hope it's not too painful. And you know, by the way, if you want to see what the real effort on Alpe d'Huez looks like, check out my video on Alpe d'Huez. Well, friends, until next time in the world of Zwift, take care, God bless, and as always, finish strong.